Well, good Monday morning, the day after Christmas. Hope everybody had a wonderful Christmas day.
Yeah, Merry Christmas.
Really.
Christmas.
Jim Tabor, along with Dr. Jim and Janine Fox of Doctors Nutrition on Cowan Road in Gulfport. Y'all survived it?
Yeah, so far.
We like this time of the year. So
Really?
It's a good time for us,
Yeah.
Well, we know a lot of people this time of the year, they're laying around the house going, I ate too much. I really need to change my eating habits. I need to get back in shape. And basically what we're going to talk about this morning is things to, be healthier.
Right. And everybody, we talked about, before how weight gain around Christmas is very common. I think about a month ago we talked about trying not to do that.
Yes.
But since people probably still did it, we now have to talk about how to get rid of it after Christmas, because every year if you gain 10 pounds, it don't take many years to be very overweight.
Yes, and we do want to mention the fact that today's show was pre-recorded. So if you're going to try to call in with questions,
Next week,
do that. Next week will be open line Monday, a brand new year. We will be back live next week, but today this is pre-recorded. We did offer last week for folks to send us some questions by email, so we will try to get to those in just a little bit. But again, we appreciate you tuning in, and hopefully things that we can pass along to you today to kind of kick off the new year to be a healthier you.
Yeah, because it's a whole new year. I mean, we're right on the doorstep of 2017.
Yes, we are.
And we don't want to go into that. Like she said, we're gaining that 5 or 10 pounds, every year. We don't want to do that. We want to try to get back on track. We've had fun. The holidays are kind of the main bad eating holidays are over.
The temptations hopefully are not around you as much.
Yeah, because when you look at New Year's, New Year's holiday, the thing about that is you don't eat the bad stuff. It's what, black-eyed peas and cabbage, right? So okay, it's not too bad. But the holidays, the Christmas and Thanksgiving holidays are, gosh, all the pies and cakes and cookies and and so it's all bad.
Okay.
Or it was all good. Whichever.
So one of the questions we had emailed into us was from Abigail of Gulfport. Wants to know, my daughter is very thin and suffers from severe menstrual cramps. Could her weight be a factor?
Well, you know what? A lot of times with menstrual cramps, it can even be an over-estrogen problem, which does not always go with being thin.
No.
Now, we have had some really thin people have higher estrogen. Now, the lower estrogen will make you usually stop having a cycle. A lot of times when you get the really thin young girls, athletes
especially,
they will actually stop having a cycle. And so that does affect it, but I don't know that her being thin is making more of the menstrual cramps. Now, we do have something called DIM, diindole methane. We've used it in a lot of younger, girls, and even lots of people of all ages. Actually, it doesn't take younger girls,
ages, really.
but it actually helps menstrual cramps.
Yeah.
And it takes about 2 to 3 months to work, but it also just helps balance the hormones in general. So it helps your PMS, it helps the mood swings, it helps a lot of the things. I always say it is probably the one thing men always come by their wives.
I was going to say something,
and
but
maybe parents should come by their teenage daughters. I don't know.
Just because she's thin, you always think, well, gosh, that's that could be a real issue. But, and normally, like she said, we think the real thin females are always, they can actually have what we call amenorrhea, which is no menstrual cycle. But, we do see an awful lot of them, and it goes along with the insulin resistance. We still see that a lot, which, goes back to the dreaded sugar and all that good stuff.
We see a lot of insulin resistance, even in thin teenagers. It's amazing what we're seeing because of the way they've eaten their whole life. And a lot of the sugar, the carbohydrates, and just eating whatever they want because they're thin can actually cause other hormonal imbalances, both men and women, because we see a lot of lower testosterone in 20-year-olds in men.
Wow.
And if you look, they all have a sugar handling problem, and they're all showing like pre-diabetes, and they don't even have to be overweight to have that.
Why is it that athletes, starting at a young age, seem to develop slower as they grow up? As far as, you said the menstrual cycle.
Hormones make a difference.
Especially females that have, and once they get their body fat too low, then they can have an issue not having enough estrogen. Okay, so because that's typically what happens. Is they don't have enough estrogen.
It's usually a body fat issue with women. Now, men don't normally have that, and athletes don't develop slower. But you do see some of the female athletes that do. They do because they don't have the hormones. They're almost like not hitting puberty yet.
Yeah. All right. Devin from Wiggins, I'm about 40 pounds overweight. Am I at risk for being diabetic, and are there symptoms that I should be looking for?
You know, the bad thing is, yes, you are at a risk of being diabetic. You know, anybody that's overweight, because you don't even have to be overweight to be at a risk. But typically speaking, if you're 40 pounds overweight, yeah, you've probably indulged a little too much in the carbs and stuff and sugars, et cetera. Now, pumpkin pie, et cetera. Right. Now, here's the thing. Symptoms, gosh, I mean, a lot of times the symptoms that show up are, it's too late. You've got something pretty serious going on when those symptoms show up. So the best thing for you to do.
And the symptoms that we see early, now there is some symptoms early that when people come in, they're actually right at diabetic, they're just beginning to be diabetic, it's just fatigue. Well, honestly, sluggishness.
Yeah, but that's not one they really think about that much.
Now the ones when you're severe diabetic, and we do get them in, they come in and they are so thirsty, they cannot get enough water, and they constantly are urinating. I mean, actually, frequent urination and extreme thirst, you always have to look for diabetes.
But the thing about somebody that like, now Devin, I'm going to kind of point this at you here. If you're 40 pounds overweight, now's the time to get involved and do something. And we talk about our weight loss panel, which is our blood work that we do. And it's going to check your blood sugar. It's going to check your fasting sugar. It's going to look at our hemoglobin A1C, which is like 90 days worth of blood sugar to look at. And then we're going to see what kind of insulin you got, because you got to have plenty of insulin to store 40 more pounds. And typically that tells you how insulin resistant you really are, and just how dedicated you've got to be to get rid of this 40 pounds. And then we might find some other underlying health issues, And
one thing that matters too, you say you're 40 pounds overweight. We will run into people that are overweight that have no insulin resistance.
Right.
But yet, the one sign that I always see in people that are becoming closer to diabetic is their weight is in the middle.
Yeah, belly fat.
It is right in the middle. It is not. You see some women that it's bigger in the legs and their behinds, and they have a little bitty waist. They're not necessarily the ones that are getting diabetic.
No.
It's the ones that it goes
so
in the belly.
Beyonce may not be at risk.
Yes, exactly.
Possibly,
so it's more. It really is more in the belly. So I do tell people if they're gaining it and it's all going to the middle, you need to be checked.
The more mature that we get, more mature that we get, it's a lot easier to put that weight on in the middle, and harder to get it off in the middle.
And part of it's hormones.
Yeah.
I mean, when hormones start falling, and men, when they get lower testosterone, they definitely start getting more insulin resistant and gaining weight. So you can definitely see a difference in hormones.
Yeah.
And women after menopause always have that problem.
All right, well, we're going to be back in just a moment. Again, this program was pre-recorded at an earlier date, but we did get some emails in, so we're going to answer some more questions coming up in just a moment. Welcome back to our special edition, the day after Christmas. This program, again, mentioned it was pre-recorded at an earlier date. We did have some questions that were emailed in. Daniela of Hurley, I started an exercise routine about 3 months ago and have changed my portion size, but I don't seem to be losing any weight or seeing any muscle. Are there certain foods I should be eating?
Well, there's some, I mean, obviously you want to get your proteins and so on.
There's really foods more that you shouldn't be
I was
eating.
going to say, it's more what you shouldn't be doing. Because even if you've changed your portion size, and if the food substance itself is the bad stuff, and even if you change the portion size, it's not going to fix the problem. So
and a lot of the research has shown that exercise alone does not make weight loss. It really matters what you eat. And a lot of people, I have many people come in and they say, I've changed, same thing, same kind of scenario. They're exercising, they're eating less, but they're still not losing. When you look, and when we do our lab work, and we always suggest in that case to do lab work, the insulin is high. And if you're eating foods, even if it's a little bit, but it's the food that spikes your insulin, insulin makes you store fat. So it is a fat storage molecule. So if you actually do the sugary foods and a lot of carbohydrates, even if it's a smaller amount, you're still going to have the higher insulin, which is still going to make you store fat.
And it's very typical to see somebody who's exercising a lot, and especially if you go to a gym or somewhere, they'll always tell you, well, you load up with carbs before you get to the gym, so you have plenty of energy for workout. And when you do that, you're going to have energy for workout, but you're also going to store a lot of fat.
Now, the carbs we suggest eating are more of your complex carbohydrates, which are your vegetables. And so you get plenty of carbohydrates from your vegetables, lean meat, vegetables, nuts, and seeds, and always go to a real food diet. We tell people if you don't do anything else, go to real food. If it's packaged and processed and already made, don't eat it, including bread. You should make everything from scratch.
Everybody says, well, I like the whole wheat bread. You know, I'll eat the whole wheat bread.
You know,
bread is bread.
They did a study. It's been a few years back. And it's really kind of neat. They went to the grocery stores and just took like your whole wheat bread off the shelf. They took 2 pieces of that and they compared the glycemic index and how fast it turns to sugar to a Snickers bar. Guess which one won?
The Snickers bar?
The Snickers bar. I said,
was better.
okay. It was
better
actually
for
better.
you?
Yeah. It was actually, it was
bread
slower.
you know,
It had some nuts.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. You know,
That's
Wheat-
true.
Yeah.
Wheat actually really does spike the insulin. And so when you're looking at, you know, all your starches and carbohydrates and what people are so used to eating, all your bread and pasta and rice and potatoes, it's making a lot of weight gain. And if you look, when they went I guess it was in the 70s when they started saying, oh, we need a low-fat diet.
74 is when the government adopted it.
Okay, well, in the 70s. And since then, diabetes and obesity have went
Skyrocketed.
skyrocketed. So more and more new research is showing it is not the fat. Now, you don't want the bad fat, you want good fat. But it's not fat making people fat. It's the carbohydrates.
Yeah.
So, you know, and now, other thing, you know, just to answer the question, we're still kind of on this question. If you are exercising, and if you already are you eating the right foods, and the portion size is low, and you're still not losing weight, you have an underlying problem.
Something's wrong.
That's what our weight loss panel looks for.
Right.
And what it does is it looks at your thyroid, which not everybody that gains weight has a thyroid problem, and everybody thinks they do, but it's not. But we find a lot of them. The thyroid's checked, the adrenals are checked, your B12, your vitamin D. You know, it looks for even something like an anemia can affect it because it might affect your eating habits if you are iron deficient. So we look for a lot of different underlying problems, and our weight loss panel does look at that insulin.
And they've got a great diet. And they've got a great diet, low glycemic diet that you
Yeah.
can. That they'll give you a sheet that's got some really, really good food on there as well.
Yeah, you know, and something too, back to Daniela there, in the foods that she should eat. Yeah, obviously, like Janine said, you know, your
Real
meats,
food.
your proteins, proteins, you know, your good vegetables, you know, the things that aren't sweet. And then, of course, the nuts and seeds are good. And staying away from fruit. You know, people that are trying to lose weight, I always tell them to stop fruit. Oh, but fruits are so good for you. Yeah, they might be, but they're loaded with sugar.
Well, we should say stop the sugar fruit.
Yeah.
People don't realize that they're eating fruit when they're eating tomatoes and squash and avocados.
those are actually fruits.
Those are good. Those are your good fruits. It's the sweet fruit that you don't
Yeah.
want to do a bunch of because it's still sugar and it still spikes the insulin and it still makes the weight gain.
Yeah, it does.
All right. Nate from Bay St. Louis, while exercising, I experienced dizziness, shortness of breath, and nausea. Is this a sign of heart trouble or something else?
Could very well be. I mean, you know, the one thing you'd want to do, you know, in the normal routine of things, first thing you want to get checked out is that heart.
Right.
That's for sure.
And a lot of times they'll do a stress test and see under stress and under exercise what the heart is doing. So you always want to rule that out first. And then after that's ruled out, and if the heart's all fine, then you start looking at some of the other problems possibly, and even anemias can actually do that, and even blood pressure falling can do that.
Blood sugar.
We see a lot of, usually it's more, young girls, where if they exercise, they start getting dizzy and nauseous, they're about to pass out is the problem. Because dizziness and nauseous is what they call a pre-syncope symptom, which means it's symptoms you have before you pass out. Now, a lot of times it can be low blood pressure in your young females, but you are not female. It doesn't sound like with a name
Nate?
of Nate.
No, I'm not.
So you always want to get the heart checked out first. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Nate,
sure.
for the email that you
Yeah,
sent
get that checked out, Nate, because that's very important.
Most definitely, most definitely. And you know, going back to the low glycemic diet that y'all have, I mean, you have a sheet of it that you can get there, and it's got a lot of great things on there. I mean, you'd be surprised of the great food that there is on there. I mean, the baked, you can do chicken, which is good.
You can do all
fish,
your lean meat. I mean, honestly, you can do all that.
Those of you that love
Proteins.
bacon,
Well,
Was it, as long as it's organic bacon?
actually, we say if it's
okay.
organic and not loaded with sugar, because most bacon has a lot of sugar, but you can actually nowadays, not necessarily around here, you can order it online or you can go to like Whole Foods in Mobile or New Orleans, and you can get what they call paleo bacon.
Yeah.
And paleo diet is another diet that uses basically cutting out a lot of the grains and the sugar.
Right.
And it actually, people are making bacon now to follow that diet, which that's actually okay.
And right before Christmas, I think the week before Christmas, us meat lovers, got a Christmas present from the National Institutes of Health. And there was a study that was done that showed that red meat, whether it's like pork or beef, whatever, has not been linked and cannot be linked scientifically to heart disease if done in moderation. And they showed like 3 to 4 ounces or so of meat a couple of times a day and several times a week. It did not adversely affect
But you did say 3 to 4 ounces at a time.
Yes, not a
You
16
don't want
ounce.
16 ounces.
Oh, come on.
That's just eating too much food in general. I always say people just eat too much.
I was going to say, just take the steak. Okay,
yeah.
we'll be back in just a moment here. It is our special day after Christmas edition of Healthy Living South Mississippi. And welcome back, our special day after Christmas edition of Healthy Living South Mississippi. Live healthy, be healthy with Drs. Jim and Janine Fox of Doctors Nutrition on Cowan Road in Gulfport, just south of Pass Road. Before we get to another email, what was the special for the week?
Well, since we're trying to get rid of that holiday weight, you know, we talked about 2 things. One is it's a special multivitamin. It's called Megavites Lean. And it has in it some things to help you with the blood sugar issue, you know, and of course
And
it's
try
just
to keep the insulin from spiking like we talked about.
Right.
And it also has a really good multivitamin.
It's really good.
Yeah, and it actually has the activated forms of B12 and folic acid,
Right,
and in
and
the
all that.
methylated forms. It has your K2 that we've talked about a lot on this show. So it's a really good multi. And so it's one that we take ourselves.
Yeah.
And then there's the CLA, which conjugated linoleic acid is one that's just been shown to help belly fat. And it's been shown to actually help. A lot of the research is done in conjunction with exercise, but they say it even helps some without exercise, but of course it's going to work better when you're exercising.
Of course.
CLA is something we used to get way back when, you know, back when we were just young whippersnappers, you know, and they used to put cows on pasture and leave them there, you know, and grass-fed beef actually contains a lot of CLA. Of course, when you take the cow off the pasture, put them in the feedlot, pour them
Full of
corn
feed.
and stuff,
Yeah.
it goes away.
Yeah, it goes away. So
Yeah.
the CLA content in our food is way less
Way
than
less.
it used to be.
Wow.
And CLA is one of those things that is good. It does not, it's not a stimulant. It does not hurt the heart. It
It's a
does
type
not
of fat.
elevate the blood pressure. Right. So it's good for anybody to take. And that was one reason we put it on sale. That and the Megavites Lean, pretty much anybody can take it.
Anybody.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Blaze from Socia, she wrote in, can being overweight cause erectile, or I guess,
I don't think it was a she.
You don't think Blaze is a
hey,
she?
maybe it was.
Well, I don't know.
Can
I
it
mean-
cause erectile dysfunction? Can being overweight
Yes.
cause erectile dysfunction?
Yes, it can. I mean, it's actually been linked a lot to it. And one of the things we talked about just a minute ago was when the sugar handling problems that we're seeing, we're even seeing lower testosterone, even in very young
Yeah.
guys. I mean, we're seeing 20-year-olds come in when we check on their testosterone.
There's literally an epidemic of it.
It
And, you know,
is.
she mentioned back in 1974 when the government said, you need to go on a low-fat diet. And of course, a lot of us did at that time, and it almost killed a lot of people, or has killed a lot of people, I'm sure. But anyhow, back then, you know, if you start then and mark things and you watch the trends for the diabetes and so on going up, as you see that trend going up for diabetes, you also see that trend going up for low testosterone. I
Right.
mean, it's become an epidemic in
Now, there's a
America.
couple ways being overweight can affect erectile dysfunction. One is the low testosterone, because that does make erectile dysfunction. But another thing is blocked arteries.
Blood flow.
Blood flow plays a big role in erectile dysfunction. So if you don't have the blood flow, you'll also have a problem. Well, you'll see lack of blood flow in people that are getting blockages.
Yes.
And so that you can have a couple things that can do it.
And one of the things that we've talked about in the past that y'all have for that is amino flow.
Oh, amino
That's
flow
very
works
good.
really good. We use it for both blood pressure and erectile
Yeah,
dysfunction.
nitric oxide.
And it actually
increases.
increases nitric oxide production, and it's in a powdered form, and it works really well.
All right, Tracy from Pascagoula. Is there such a thing as over-exercising? I go to the gym 5 days a week. Should I continue or maybe cut back?
I mean, you can over-exercise, there's no doubt about it. I mean, you know, what's really kind of interesting in studying this paleo adventure that everybody's looking at, we're looking at our ancient ancestors, and there's a couple of tribes down in the Amazon and so on that they've been watching, and something that's come out of that is how these people function and how our ancient ancestors would function. And they didn't go to the gym 5 days a week. You know, they might get up in the morning and kind of leisure around, you know, for a while and say, well, you know, we're going to have something to eat, so let's go find something. So they stalk, and then there's sudden burst of energy, you know, to chase down the antelope or whatever, and all this good stuff. So they figured that most of these, and watching these tribes now that are totally isolated, they look and see that something that we term it now interval training, where they don't do a lot of heavy exercise every day, but when they do some pretty severe exercise, you know, maybe 2 or 3 days a week or 4 days a week at the most. and they get a lot of rest and recovery in between, because that's how our ancient ancestors did it.
And 5 days a week is not necessarily too much to do some sort
depends on what you're doing.
Right, and it depends on how long. We do find the people that do the 3 and 4 hours a day, when they come in and they don't feel well, their cortisol is really high. It actually increases the stress hormone to over-exercise. So yes, it can be bad for you if you over-exercise, because that stress hormone can do a lot of things to you, and we do see a lot of people that over-exercise have high cortisol. And that is, of course, on the panel that we've talked about. So if you come to the lab work, you can see where is your cortisol, where are your adrenals, and then you can see how you're doing.
Okay. Travis from Ocean Springs, I am suffering from gout recently, and I haven't really eaten anything different. What could be causing it? And do you have a supplement that can help?
Well, the reason you have gout now, and the reason it's finally caught up with you is, it's a slow process. Your body, it just doesn't get rid of that uric acid quite as efficiently as the rest of the folks do. And over time it builds up, and eventually it builds up to a point where it's got you. And that's the problem. That's why it comes on so slowly, and you haven't changed anything, but all of a sudden now you got symptoms.
Now sometimes the foods that people don't think of as being related to gout, they're finding out is, and that's again sugar, just like we've been talking about most of the show. They've actually found that sugar does increase the risk of gout, to where before it was always just your high
Sugar increases the risk of pretty much anything.
All your purine foods, all the purine foods is what normally, and there's no doubt the organ meat, some of your seafood, we see people constantly that eat crab legs and they're in town and the gout flares up greatly. We see that a lot. But we do have a supplement that actually helps, and people say it helps a lot, and it's called uric acid formula. So what it does is it lowers uric acid, and it has a lot of your natural anti-inflammatories to help the inflammation as well. Now, a lot of people have heard from gout the black cherry extract, and it does have the black cherry extract in it as well, because that definitely helps. I mean, it really does. People can't believe how big of a difference it tends to make.
And we always talk about changing the diet.
And definitely change the diet.
And Travis, one of the biggies, and if you're like most of us, you love maybe some of the draft beers and craft beers and things. Beers get high in purines, and purines are going to cause an excess uric acid. So, adult beverages can do it too.
One thing I find a lot of people don't realize that is real bad for gout is roe.
Oh, fish roe.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And they eat sushi, and they're thinking that ain't too bad. And I'm like, that little orange stuff that's around it, that is one of the worst things you can do for gout.
No, I always get a rainbow roll. That's got just salmon.
Okay, well, like I said, but it is one of the things that people are always like, I didn't know. I've been eating sushi every day. You know what I mean? So I do find that some people are eating things.
I'm not that crazy about it, but I do love sushi.
Yeah, and they don't realize it. You know what I mean? They don't realize that is one of the things that can do it. And even little sardines, I mean, all that can flare it up. So there's a lot of things that can flare up gout.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we got less than a minute left, but again, we want to wish everyone happy holidays, and I hope you had a Merry Christmas and everything. And we will be back next Monday live, as this program was pre-recorded. We'll be back next Monday live for our New Year's kickoff.
Right.
And it'll be open line Monday.
Yeah,
yes,
so
it
you
will.
can call about anything. So just, get your questions together and call, and
And if you want to email in, you can email it to me at jtabor, T-A-B-O-R, at WLOX.com. And we'll be glad to pass the questions along to the doctor.
Sure will.
So anyway, have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next Monday.